Welcome to GRN, the Growth and Resilience Network, where every episode brings you targeted stories and strategies about your professional and personal growth and resilience. The intent of each episode is to educate, energize, and equip you with the information that you can use and hopefully a bit of wisdom to apply in your life and within your community. Hi, I'm Steve Piscitelli, your host, coming to you from my world headquarters here in Atlantic Beach, Florida. Today we're going to look into the connection between growth, resilience, and reflective practice for college faculty, administration, and staff. I'm going to start by sharing a brief quote, a brief R.D. Laing quote that I believe sets the stage for us today. The range of what we think and do is limited by what we fail to notice. If we want to change anything, we have to notice what we're doing. We have to have an awareness. We have to shine a spotlight on what we want to notice. For instance, one study of faculty in higher education found that nearly two-thirds of the faculty were stressing because of their work assignments, and nearly three-quarters felt pressure by bureaucratic red tape, and more than 80% were stressing due to a lack of free time or a lack of balance. Now, the good news in those stark numbers is that these classroom instructors are at least aware of what is causing angst in their lives. They have, in effect, placed a spotlight on those troubling issues. And we also need to go beyond the spotlight to what might not be so readily noticeable. We have to, in other words, understand the nuances that surround the issues we're attempting to get clarity about. Then once we notice, once we're aware, we have to figure out why we do what we do, then develop an action plan of what I call movement for improvement. And the process applies to all occupations, all callings, all relationships. Today we're focusing on the calling of teaching, and in particular higher education. And in the studio via Skype to help us sort through how to become aware, question assumptions, and create action are two award-winning associate professors from Wake Technical Community College in Raleigh, North Carolina. And that's Emily Moore and Lori Dees. Both Emily and Lori have received the Excellence Award for their teaching and learning skills. And I was told earlier this week that Lori actually received that award college-wide. So we have royalty in the studio today. And they have developed a reflective practice initiative for Wake Tech that we're going to talk a little bit about today as well. They've been instrumental in getting the PRO project initiative off the ground after college. PRO stands for Practicing Reflection Online. I'll put the website up on the podcast platform, but I'll briefly say it here. It is www.coursesites.com. That's COURSESITES.com/S/ then the underscore mark, and then PRO project. And again, I'll put that up. So Emily, Lori, welcome to the GRN studios. We are so glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's a wonderful pleasure. All right, let's just get to it. First, tell us from your perspective so that we can understand what is reflective practice and why is it important? Why did you create this initiative?
Well, reflective practice is just allowing yourself time to think, which we often get so busy. We forget to take a few minutes to think about our day. So it's just scheduling a few minutes into your day to really stop and think about how things have gone. You can do it alone. You can do it collaboratively with others. So you can think about the good and the bad. And as you said, come up with some kind of action to make things better. We like to do it because we feel it helps us to sort out our ideas. We learn from our mistakes. When we're talking with others, it can help give us new things to try. So it helps prevent burnout. And it just makes us overall better at our job, so we can feel more confident. We can have a better understanding of why we do what we do. And we've actually found a lot of research that shows that it really does make you and your company more successful.
Wow. And so, based on what Lori was just saying, is collaboration an important piece of this reflective practice? Have you found that to be an important piece?
Yes, absolutely. I think that, well, Lori alluded to some of the research that we looked at, and we did look at a lot of studies. One of the things that we found in our research is that when you collaborate to do reflection, it actually improves your ability to take action based on the reflection. So.
And that leads into the next question I had, which is about ROI, or return on investment. We hear so much about that. Is there an ROI that you have found? Is there, when you look at reflective practice, and again, how long have you been doing the Pro Project now? Is it about a year, 2 years?
It's been at least 2 years.
At least 2 years, okay. Do you have a sense of, for the folks that are involved in it, have they shared with you, or do you gather the information? Are they feeling like they're getting a return on what they're investing in this? And the investment obviously is time.
Yes, absolutely. And you're right. I think that's a great question because, of course, there are the studies out there that show that employees who are self-aware are more productive in companies, and there are studies that show that teachers who are reflective are better instructors. But as far as our personal experience is concerned, we do a survey. We did a survey at the end of last year, and then we did a survey at the end of this year of our group, our contingent of reflective practitioners, and the vast majority of them, I think it's 90-something percent, did say that they experienced some positive results from the reflective process. And I think one of the things that we found from our study of our own folks is that one of the biggest benefits was a reduction in feelings of isolation. That was, I think, everybody.
Yeah, reduction of isolation. It not only gives them clarity for what they're doing, but they feel like, I'm not in this alone.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's powerful. And in some of the reflective practice workshops that I have facilitated, I hear the same thing. And even when I don't hear it from a particular participant, I could see it in their eyes. I could see it in their body language as they lean into the conversations as opposed to leaning back and crossing their arms. They're really involved with it. Now, the Pro Project, tell us a little, because I found this fascinating. When you first told me about this a little over a year ago, I found it fascinating. You're doing the reflection online as opposed to coming together in a room. Was that because we're all so busy, this is one way to do it? Or were there some other factors involved? Lori or Em, either one.
Well, for us, it was, time. We really thought about, how busy we are during the day. We rarely find enough time to, take those few minutes out of the day. And everyone has such different schedules. So we wanted a way for people to be able to reflect whenever they wanted and wherever they were. So if that meant that, yes, I have 10 minutes in my office, then, you can hop online and reflect there. Or if it means it's midnight and I've finally finished working and put the kids to bed, and now I can take some time for myself. We just wanted them to be able to reflect and to kind of help eliminate that barrier of having time to do it.
Yeah, and I wanted just to jump in on that because I remember when Emily first told me about this, what came to my mind was that when I was doing this with colleagues on my campus about a year or so ago, the first thing we had to do was build a circle of trust within the room. And we were doing it face-to-face, not online. And we had to build this circle of trust, and it was that, what we say in this room stays in this room. And that was very powerful. And so the first thing I thought of when I heard this is online, like, wow, that's a virtual room. And when I type something, if I type something in the discussion board, I have to really trust the people that are in this community because, as we know online, what we type could go any place. Has there been a sense of vulnerability or anxiety or concern when you talk to faculty, administration, or staff and say, we're going to do this online? How do you convey the idea that this is a circle of trust? This is for your growth. This is for your clarity. This is for your clarification. Em, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, I remember our talk about that, Steve, because that certainly was one of the challenges that we faced in the project. And Lori and I experienced it ourselves because when we first started this project, it was just the two of us reflecting back and forth through a Google Doc. And so, we found in our own experience that it requires a certain amount of being willing to be vulnerable, to be authentic. If you're not authentic about what you're saying, it's really, there's no point for anybody. And
excellent point.
It's really important, absolutely, that we be vulnerable, that we be authentic. And then the trust is kind of built up over time, I think, because as you participate in the forum and you receive encouragement and support, it kind of, I think people are more willing then to continue to participate when they it is a support community.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview this morning, in fact, and it was about trust. And one of the people that was being interviewed had said that before trust comes safety. I have to feel that I am safe, and then I can trust you. So, hats off to you. You have created. It's a needed practice that I think Lori alluded to at the beginning. That we just don't take the time. We need to be mindful about the time, and you're creating a safe environment for it. That's powerful, and hopefully your community, your Wake Tech community, understands that. It's not an easy thing to build, but you folks are obviously building it. And for the listeners, I've had the pleasure to visit their campus, and I've worked with Emily and Lori, and you're not going to find more authentic people, and I think that's what you need to draw people in. So, congratulations to you on that. Let's go a little deeper. Before any of us can truly reflect, we have to first be aware. And I have talked about, when I worked with people, this idea of gathering game film, figuring out how do you know what you're actually doing, especially in a classroom. I could go back at the end of a day and say, oh, I know what I did in the classroom, but in fact, I'm just going by recollection. Do you do anything with your community to help them gather their game film?
Well, we actually have put ourselves in charge of putting a prompt up each week in the forum. And if you subscribe to the forums, you'll get an email of everything that's posted there. So on a weekly basis, we would provide a prompt for people so that they could be reminded to reflect and have some kind of a guided discussion if they weren't really sure what to write about for the day. And so we could talk to and communicate with each other that way online.
Mm-hmm. Okay, those prompts, and how often do those go out?
Once a week.
That's good. Yeah, and so it's just a little reminder. Take time for yourself. Take time for your reflection. Have you had to, or how do you keep it positive so that people don't use it for venting, for complaining about this group of people, or complaining about students, or complaining about whatever? How do you keep it so it's not a venting session?
Yeah, that was actually a concern that we had initially, and it's actually proven, and it may just be our group, but it has proven that it hasn't really been a challenge for us as much as we thought it might be. We actually created a little video that we posted. It's on the site that your listeners can join, and then it's also on the site that we have just for our Wake Tech people. And it's just a little intro video that Lori and I made, and it just sort of reminds everyone of the purpose of the forum, and just kind of, I think, focuses us all on what the purpose of reflection is. And because the purpose is to see how we can improve, I think that sort of sets a more positive tone, right? Because it's not just saying, oh, here's what's wrong, here's what's not working, but sort of what could I try, what might work.
And again, this idea of the trust and what might work and the like. Let me ask you this: let's move away from Wake Tech, and let's say you were called in by a corporation, maybe not even a higher ed group, and they said, listen, we want to do reflective practice. We heard the podcast. We think this is important. And they ask you about facilitation of a reflective practice workshop or series. When you're looking at facilitation, talk to us about what an effective facilitator would do. You're doing it online, and obviously, I mean, you're establishing a continuity with your weekly emails to kind of, hey, remember, this is your... But if we were sitting down, do you have any sense of what an effective facilitator brings into the room?
Well, I think starting with kind of the small stuff is better, and not trying to dive into too deep or critical of things at first, so people can have time to get comfortable. Of course, still reminding them, about the safe space and being respectful of each other, encouraging towards each other to create that trust in a face-to-face environment. I think you have to be sensitive to the different types of participants you might have. We talk a lot about introverts and extroverts, and what can we do to make everyone feel comfortable and included. So we've tried to provide, we do actually have times that we can meet face-to-face. So we tried to provide some guidance ahead of time, so people who want to think about things before they speak them, that they have the opportunity to do that.
Right. Actually, when you were saying that, Lori, I'm thinking you're being good teachers. Because that's what a good teacher. That's why you're Excellence Awards winners. I mean, that's what a good teacher does, is making everybody feel comfortable. Let's talk about bright spots, not so bright spots. So far in your initiative, the Pro Project, what would you say have been the bright spots? If you had to pick one or two, and you say, this is what we've been really jazzed about. This is cool.
Well, there have been a couple of things that I think we have worked so well that we definitely want to continue them. One is this year, and this is really based on my conversation that I had with you, Steve, when you suggested that we try to add a face-to-face component. We started what we called the Brookfield Project this past year, and we gathered those who were interested in having that face-to-face reflection time and kind of created like a book club almost that was focused on reflective practice. And so together, this group, we all read Stephen Brookfield's book, Becoming a Critically Reflective Teacher.
Yeah. It is a classic book.
Yes, and so that was great because the book is about being a reflective practitioner, so that the subject was, about reflection, and then we were able to get together and sort of apply the concepts of the book to our own reflection, and to have those face-to-face meetings, which I think then, in turn, supported the online discussion. So, they really enabled those online discussions that we had in between the meetings to be deeper, and to kind of make them, to make it easier for people to be willing to be vulnerable and to share, because they knew sort of their audience. Have you found that face-to-face component
really helped solidify the group? That added piece that now I see your eyeballs and, we're sitting next to each other?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say that one of our challenges has been that we do have quite a few participants on our forums who are enrolled but don't actually post. And so I do think having the face-to-face increased the number of participants who are willing to go online and actually post. But I've tried to think about the fact that even if people are not posting, it's still beneficial to them, because if they're signed up for the weekly emails, if they're subscribed to the forum and they're getting those prompts, they are having the opportunity to think about that even if they don't share, and then they're able to read the reflections of those of us who are willing to share. So that's something we would like to increase, is the number of people who are on the forums but aren't always posting.
Right.
And I don't expect everyone to post all the time, but it would be nice to increase the number of participants who do post.
And Em, I think you raise a great point that I might be in this discussion board, but I'm not posting, but I'm reading. And just knowing that Lori down the hall is experiencing some of the same challenges I am in the classroom, or for those in the corporate audience, for those in another cubicle down the hall experiencing the same issues, that can really be an eye-opener, and it can be very validating, extremely validating. So, on one hand, you'd like to have more people sharing. At the same time, you take a little bit of solace in that they're getting something from this. There definitely are. A few years ago, I was telling someone about a retreat that I had helped facilitate. It happened to be in Arkansas with higher ed faculty again. And I remember one person asking very nicely, they weren't being insulting, but they said, "Oh, so were all these people hippie types?" There was this idea that if you sat around and you gave some time to reflection, that you're somehow you're on a different planet. You're sitting on an island by yourself. Do you find that you have to sell reflective practice? And if you do, how have you sold it?
I definitely think there are people who are more willing to jump right into it, and others who aren't used to being as introspective. And I think some of that goes back to, an introvert and an extrovert and how we like to express what's going on. So there has been a little bit of people who've had a harder time embracing it. But once they join the group, and particularly with the face-to-face component we were able to add, it really was a diverse group of administrators, staff, faculty. So, once you're involved in it and you really see the benefit of it, I think there's no question that you want to continue it. And so for people who are just joining, that's what we try to focus on, is those benefits of community, particularly with us because we have multiple campuses. So eliminating those feelings of isolation has been really big. And it's an opportunity for professional development.
Sure.
So we really focus on that component.
Good. Very good. All right, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to move into a call to action and kind of wrap this up for you and for the listeners. There is something I read about years ago, and then in doing some more research, Toyota seems to be given the credit for a process known as the 5 whys. And very simply, it's starting with a premise and then asking why 5 times. So every time you start with a premise and using something that classroom teachers would understand is, a student saying, well, why did I fail my exam? The answer could be, well, I did not understand the material. Well, why didn't you understand the material? Well, I didn't do the homework. Why didn't you do the homework? Because it was too abstract. And you get down to the nitty and the gritty of it, if you would. If you wanted to get down to the nitty and the gritty of about reflective practice, and you were doing the 5 whys, what do you think is the root reason? I mean, if you strip away all the others, strip away everything, what's the root reason for me to do reflective practice, either alone or, as you're doing very effectively, collaboratively?
Well, in either case, alone or collaboratively, I think just having those, I think it's a couple of things. I mean, having new ideas to be able to put into practice, it's very motivating to it's one thing to reflect, it's another thing to put that into action. So I think that helps us to put those things into action. And so we see the results of that, which keeps us motivated. If you are doing it collaboratively, I mean, I think just going back to the isolation, I mean, it's really great to feel that network and to know that you're not alone in the things that you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Em, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that if we think about the 5 whys and the idea of the reason that we would ask ourselves those questions is because we want to see some different result, right? If we just do the same actions, we're going to have the same result. And so in reflection, part of why we're doing that is because we want to have a better result. We don't want to just reflect, oh, this is what happened, but we want that to lead to some type of change that will hopefully help us to discover, a better way.
Yes, excellent point. I think it was Einstein said something like doing something the same way but expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And so what you're saying is the reflection helps us. And what I love, Lori, what you articulated is that reflection, that's great, but now you got to do something with it. And it's just like setting a goal. That's great, but now you got to do something with it. And so is the action. So let's move into a call to action. Being that you are Excellence Award winners in teaching and learning, you know the importance of application, right? You've just given us great information over the last 25 minutes about reflective practice. What would be a call to action so that the people today, when they shut off the podcast, something they could do, even if it's something simple, but it's a first step?
Well, I think, Steve, the first thing that we would love for people to do is to go onto our site. You gave the address already, the web address. And if your listeners would just join us there, we've posted many articles on reflective practice. You can see reflective practice that's ongoing in the forum. And then if you subscribe to the discussion forum, you can get those weekly emails because we do post weekly and you can have them emailed to you. So I think even if your listeners are not ready to commit to participating on the forum, if they would commit to checking it out.
Okay. So, and to clarify, I think you have 2 different platforms. You have one strictly for the Wake Tech group. But then for someone like me who's a part of it, I'm in a different piece or different part of the platform. Is that correct?
Yeah, Lori and I keep them straight by the blue site and the green site.
Whatever works.
Yeah, the Wake Tech one is our blue site, and the green site is for anyone and everyone that we meet and talk to about reflective practice. We've been fortunate enough to present at some national conferences, and so we've shared the information on the green site, which is open to anyone. So if your listeners would be willing to check that out, I think that would be a great first step. There is so much that if you're interested in reflection at all, it's just a starting point for you.
Well, and that's, such a powerful offer that you just made for that call to action. So folks who aren't involved with the college community, who might not even be in higher ed, but are intrigued by this reflective practice, not only for themselves, but maybe for their colleagues in their workspace, they have an opportunity. It doesn't cost them anything, correct? This is free. Free is nice. And so they have this opportunity to join in with something that is facilitated with research to get some background. And like you said, even if they didn't participate by posting, they can be sponges with the information you're given. So that's really powerful stuff. That really is. So folks, take them up on that. That is coursesites.com/S/ again with the underscore after that second / and then pro project. I will post that on the platform. Now, Lori and Emily, before I close this, I'm going to ask you 2 questions you had no clue were going to come your way. These are for fun. If reflective practice was a color, what color would it be?
For me, I would say blue. That might be because blue is my favorite color. And I would consider myself an introvert. And I think of it as kind of a calming, peaceful color. Maybe it's because it creates that sense of trust for me. So I would go with blue.
And that's so funny because my first thought was green. And those are our two. We have the blue site and the green site. But I guess green is, for me, like the growth, the idea of growth. And also sort of like the go, when the light turns green, you go. So kind of the action as well.
Excellent. That's great. All right. One last question. You walk into your favorite coffee shop. You look up at the menu on the wall, the different types of coffees. Em, if you were a coffee, which would you be? And Lori, you get to think about your answer. Em first. What coffee would Em be?
Well, actually, did you know there's an online quiz about this, Steve?
No, I did not. Is there?
If you Google, what coffee would you be, or there's also one for what ice cream would you be. I only know this because we used it we taught our students an identity unit, and we had to do this. And I actually don't drink coffee. So I took the online quiz, and I came out water.
Pure water, I'm sure. Yes, okay. How about you, Lori?
Oh, goodness. Well,
water.
I am a coffee drinker. I have not taken that quiz, but I might think of myself more on the tea side of things in the coffee shop. Again, just the more calming, smooth demeanor kind of makes me think of tea instead of coffee.
And it fits with your blue. With your color blue, that's right. I'll have to check out that quiz. All right, folks, thank you again, Lori, Emily, I appreciate this. Again, I'll post that website for you. We'll put it on the podcast description. And my gosh, they've given you a great invitation. Please take them up on that. And I want to thank the listeners for joining us today. Without you, there is no Growth in Resilience Network. I thank you for sharing our podcast with family, friends, colleagues, community leaders. And if you get a chance, please consider going to iTunes and leaving a very quick review about the podcast, this one and others. Visit my website, stevepiscitelli.com, for more information about upcoming conversations and also to see past conversations about the programs and also other resources for your personal growth and resilience. So until we meet again, either virtually or somewhere in person around this great nation, this is Steve Piscitelli from my world headquarters in Atlantic Beach, Florida, reminding all of us to choose well, live well, and be well.